My mother's pleading voicemail plays for the third time today. I watch my phone screen glow against the polished mahogany of my desk as her voice fills my sunlit apartment. "Jamie, please call us back. Your father's too proud to say it, but we're about to lose everything." I press pause, the familiar knot forming in my stomach. 5 years since they told me I was throwing my life away, and now they need the failure to bail them out. Outside my window, the San Francisco skyline shimmers in the morning light, 27 floors up and 2,000 miles from the suburban Minneapolis home where I learned that military service was settling for less. I hover my finger over the delete button, torn between the ingrained need to help and the hard-won boundaries I've built since returning from Afghanistan. The sleek office chair creaks as I shift my weight, my prosthetic leg adjusting with a soft mechanical click against the hardwood floor. My desk phone interrupts the moment, its light blinking with determined persistence. "Jamie Sullivan speaking," I answer, slipping into my professional voice with practiced ease. "Jamie, we need those security protocol assessments for the Palmer contract by end of day." My boss Trevor's voice carries the same clipped efficiency that served him well during our shared deployment and now drives our cybersecurity firm. The client moved up the timeline. "Already finished." "I'll send them now," I reply, grateful for the distraction from my personal dilemma. As senior security architect at BastionShield, I've built a reputation for being 3 steps ahead, a skill that kept people alive in Kandahar and now keeps corporate networks safe in Silicon Valley. As I hang up, my personal phone buzzes again. This time it's a text from my father. "Your mother is too emotional, but the situation is serious. Call us." No apology, no acknowledgement of the years of silence, just the expectation that I'll respond to their emergency as though the past never happened. A bitter smile crosses my lips as I open my laptop. I pull up my bank account, $387,450 in savings, plus the stock options that have appreciated nicely since our company's security protocols became industry standard last year. More than enough to solve whatever financial crisis my parents have created, but at what cost to the boundaries I've fought to establish? The irony isn't lost on me. 5 years ago, they cut me off completely when I chose the Army over the prestigious law school they'd planned for me since childhood. "We didn't raise you to be cannon fodder," my father had spat, his face contorted with a rage I'd never seen before. "If you walk out that door, don't expect our support." I trace my fingers over the frame on my desk, my service photo in full-dress uniform, taken the day of my commission. Behind it, partially obscured, my bronze star with Valor device, and purple heart rest in a display case I keep angled away from video calls. Not out of shame, but because those honors are mine alone, earned through blood and sacrifice, not for display or explanation. My phone buzzes with a text from my sister Grace. "They're not telling you everything. The foreclosure notice came yesterday. Dad's business has been failing for months. Please call me." I sigh, opening my calendar. 3 client meetings, a security assessment, and dinner with Sophia, my girlfriend of 2 years who's still waiting for me to open up about the family I rarely mention. The weight of my parents' expectations has always been a shadow I couldn't outrun, even across war zones and oceans. A memory surfaces, 12 years old, bringing home my perfect math scores, excited to show my engineer father. He'd glanced at the paper, nodded once, and said, "This is expected, not exceptional, Jamie." That same evening, celebrating my cousin's acceptance to Harvard with champagne and a special dinner, while my achievement sat unmentioned, a yellowing paper on the refrigerator eventually covered by grocery lists and appointment cards. The familiar ache spreads through my chest, the pain as fresh as when I was that confused child trying to understand why nothing I accomplished ever seemed enough. My therapist calls it the invisible child syndrome, when a child's achievements are systematically minimized until they become invisible even to themselves. My office door opens after a quick knock. Trevor leans in, his prosthetic arm a match to my leg. Souvenirs from the same IED that changed our lives forever. You got that 1,000-yard stare going, Sullivan. Everything tactical? It's our private shorthand, carried over from deployment. Tactical, meaning under control, manageable. Family stuff, I reply, knowing he'll understand without further explanation. Trevor nods, having witnessed firsthand the absence of any family during my 6 months in Walter Reed. No cards, no calls, just silence while I learn to walk again. Command decision time? He asks, our military speak for making tough choices. Something like that. He taps the doorframe twice with his prosthetic hand, our signal of solidarity. Whatever you decide, you've got a family here that has your 6. He disappears down the hallway, leaving me with the weight of his words. Family. The one I was born into versus the one I found in dusty forward operating bases, and later, in the shared understanding of veterans who built this company from nothing, but grit and specialized skills the civilian world barely comprehends. I open my email, scanning for client updates, when a notification from my automated property alert system pops up. 5 years ago, after my medical discharge, I'd set up monitoring on my parents' property and finances, not out of concern for them, but to protect myself from any attempts to use my information after they'd cut ties so completely. The alert shows multiple missed mortgage payments, a home equity line maxed out, and property tax liens filed. Their comfortable upper-middle-class existence appears to be collapsing with surprising speed. Another search reveals my father's engineering consultancy showing signs of insolvency, with several small claims judgments filed in recent months. My fingers hover over the keyboard, the analyst in me already calculating exactly how much financial assistance would be required to stabilize their situation. The wounded daughter in me questions whether I owe them anything at all. The intercom buzzes, pulling me from my thoughts. Ms. Sullivan, your 11 o'clock is here. The Pentagon liaison for Project Garrison. Send him in, please, I reply, straightening my blazer and adjusting my prosthetic leg beneath my desk. A habit before important meetings, ensuring everything is perfectly aligned both literally and metaphorically. Colonel Reeves enters with the precise movements of career military, his handshake firm as he takes the seat across from me. Captain Sullivan, good to see you again. It's just Jamie now, Colonel, I remind him with a small smile, though we both know military titles never really fade away. Right, of course. He places a classified folder on my desk. Your security protocols for forward operating bases have saved lives. The Joint Chiefs want to expand implementation to all theater operations. Pride swells briefly in my chest. The work that came from those terrible moments in Afghanistan now protecting others from the same fate. This is what my parents never understood, that my settling for military service had purpose beyond their narrow definition of success. We're prepared to offer a substantial contract, Colonel Reeves continues, with you personally overseeing implementation. As we discuss details, my phone vibrates silently against the desk, my mother calling again. I turn it face down, focusing on the Colonel's proposal. This contract would double our company's annual revenue and establish us as the premier security firm for military applications nationwide. After the Colonel leaves, I remain at my desk, staring at the San Francisco Bay glittering beyond my window. The same view that helped ground me during panic attacks in those first difficult months after discharge. The same steady horizon I'd focus on when phantom pain from my missing limb would wake me screaming in the night. I finally pick up my phone and listen to my mother's latest message. Jamie, please, I know we haven't been there for you, but we're desperate. The bank is foreclosing next month. Your father's business failed, and we've got nowhere else to turn. Please, just call us. The tremor in her voice sounds genuine, but I've learned to distrust emotional appeals that only surface when something is needed from me. 5 years of silence broken not by apology or reconciliation, but by financial desperation. Another memory rises. my high school graduation, valedictorian, scholarship offers from prestigious universities across the country. My father's only comment: "With your test scores, you should have had Harvard calling." No congratulations, no pride, just the ever-present reminder that whatever I achieved was somehow still falling short. Then freshman year of college, my perfect GPA and early acceptance into the pre-law program. The phone call home met with, "Of course you're doing well. We've invested enough in your education." My classmates' parents sent care packages and congratulatory cards for achievements half the size of mine. The pattern continued through college. Every accomplishment measured against an impossible standard. Every success somehow transformed into the bare minimum expectation. Until finally, my decision to join the Army's JAG program instead of the corporate law track they'd mapped out-triggered the complete severing of ties. "We didn't raise you to waste your potential," my mother had said, her disappointment palpable. "If you're determined to throw away everything we've given you, then you're on your own." I didn't try to explain how the JAG recruitment presentation had awakened something in me. A calling to serve, to use my legal training to protect those who protect us. They wouldn't have understood how the uniform represented purpose, not failure. What they could never comprehend was how their conditional love had created a hunger for the military's clarity, clear objectives, defined expectations, and recognition, based on performance, not arbitrary shifting standards impossible to meet. The Army saw value in me that my own parents never did, until my convoy hit that IED outside Kandahar. I glance at the clock, nearly noon, my afternoon schedule packed, with client meetings and system assessments. No time to unpack family trauma today, just like every day for the past 5 years. Compartmentalization, another skill the Army taught me well. I send a text to Grace. "Can you talk tonight? Need full situation report before making any decisions." Her response comes quickly. "Yes. 8 p.m. your time? There's more you should know." Confirm the time, then pull up the mortgage documents my monitoring system flagged. The numbers tell a clear story. A pattern of financial mismanagement spanning years, not months. Poor investment choices, equity pulled from their home for what appears to be lifestyle maintenance rather than emergencies. The house I grew up in, once nearly paid off, now drowning in debt with an underwater mortgage. Financial analyst mode kicks in automatically. This isn't a simple rough patch. This is financial collapse requiring significant intervention and restructuring. Something catastrophic must have happened to my father's business beyond normal market fluctuations. My desk phone buzzes again. "Jamie, Sophia's online too," my assistant says. "She says it's important." I pick up, grateful to hear my girlfriend's calming voice. "Hey, everything okay?" "Just confirming dinner tonight at Maison Bleu," Sophia replies, "and checking if you're still up for meeting my parents next weekend. They're excited to finally meet the woman behind all those security patents." The stark contrast hits me. Sophia's parents, eager to celebrate my accomplishments despite never having met me, versus my own who couldn't acknowledge my successes even when they witnessed them firsthand. "About dinner tonight," I begin, hesitation creeping into my voice. "Family situation has come up? Mind if we reschedule?" Sophia's silence speaks volumes. After 2 years together, she's patient but increasingly frustrated by my reluctance to discuss my family or integrate our lives more fully. "Grace called?" she finally asks, knowing my sister is the only family member I maintain contact with. Something like that, I hedge. Parents having financial issues. Apparently severe enough they're reaching out after 5 years of silence. And you're considering helping them? It's not a question but a statement of understanding. Despite my boundaries, Sophia knows my sense of duty runs bone deep. "I'm gathering information," I correct her. "No decisions yet. Just remember what Dr. Levine said about establishing healthy boundaries," she reminds me gently, referencing my therapist's ongoing guidance. Helping doesn't have to mean sacrificing your self-respect. After we hang up, I stare at the photo of us on my desk, Sophia and me at Half Moon Bay, the wind catching her dark curls as she laughs at something beyond the camera's frame. The ease of her smile, the uncomplicated joy in her eyes. Everything my childhood home lacked. The afternoon passes in a blur of meetings and technical challenges that demand my complete focus. The kind of complex problems with definable solutions that have always been my refuge from emotional uncertainties. In the structured world of cybersecurity, threats can be identified, isolated, and neutralized. Unlike family dynamics, where the threats are often disguised as love and the damage accumulates over decades. At 5:30, Trevor stops by my office again. Team's heading to McConnell's for drinks. You joining? I gesture to the stack of reports on my desk. Rain check? Need to finish these, and then I have a call with Grace. He studies me for a moment, the understanding between veterans requiring few words. Family command decision? I nod. Rules of engagement established? A small smile tugs at my lips. Our military speak feels like a secure channel in a world of unsecured communications. Working on them. Remember, Sullivan, he says, his tone serious despite the casual setting. You rebuilt yourself after Kandahar. You don't owe anyone the blueprint for how you did it. After he leaves, I order dinner to my office and prepare for the video call. With Grace. Unlike our parents, my younger sister had maintained contact after my deployment, though our relationship remained complicated by her continued dependence on our parents. At exactly 8 p.m., my laptop chimes with an incoming call. Grace's face appears on screen, her expression tight with worry. "Hey, soldier," she says, using her childhood nickname for me despite my corrections. "What's really going on, Grace?" I ask, bypassing small talk. "The foreclosure I found through my monitoring system, but what caused Dad's business to collapse so suddenly?" Grace bites her lip, a childhood tell that bad news is coming. He invested everything in a technology startup, some revolutionary manufacturing process that was supposed to triple his returns within a year. Let me guess. It failed? Worse. The founder disappeared with the investment funds about 3 months ago. Dad put in not just his business capital, but took out the home equity loan too, almost $500,000 altogether. I close my eyes briefly, the recklessness of it momentarily stealing my breath. My father, the calculating engineer who criticized my every decision, had gambled everything on an obvious scam. There's more, Grace continues. They don't know I'm telling you this, but they've been using my credit for the past 2 months to stay afloat. I'm maxed out now too. The revelation lands like a physical blow. Not content with destroying their own finances, they've damaged Grace's future as well. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" I ask, struggling to keep accusation from my tone. "They swore things would turn around," she explains, her voice small. "Dad kept saying his attorney was tracking down the founder, that they'd recover the investment." I shake my head, recognizing the pattern. Our father never admitted mistakes. They were always temporary setbacks soon to be rectified. Never poor decisions requiring accountability. "Jamie," Grace says hesitantly, "they're talking about moving in with me if they lose the house. My 1-bedroom apartment. I can't." Her voice breaks. "I understand," I assure her. Through our limited contact over the years, I know Grace has been working toward her nursing degree while balancing 2 jobs. The last thing she needs is our parents undermining her independence. After promising Grace I'll consider options and get back to her, I end the call and turn to the window. Night has fallen while we talked, the San Francisco skyline now a constellation of office lights and apartment windows. Each one representing lives and stories I'll never know, just as those people will never understand what it's like to rebuild yourself from nothing while those who should have supported you turned away. My reflection stares back at me from the darkened glass. Captain Jamie Sullivan, decorated combat veteran, successful security expert, respected industry leader. Not the failure my parents declared me to be, but someone who found purpose beyond their limited imagination. Tomorrow I'll call them back. But tonight, I need to decide, what does the failure owe to those who assigned her that label? And what will it cost me to either help or turn away? Have you ever had to decide whether to help those who hurt you when they need you most? What would you do if the people who gave up on you suddenly needed saving? Morning light filters through the blinds as I sip my coffee, staring at my phone screen. The sleek device sits accusingly on my kitchen counter, my parents' contact information, displayed but not yet dialed. Outside, San Francisco awakens, fog rolling back to reveal glimpses of the Golden Gate Bridge from my corner apartment. I've been up since 4 a.m., military habits dying hard even 5 years after discharge. The prosthetic leg leans against the kitchen island, not yet attached for the day. These private morning moments when I'm not whole in the world's eyes but completely, myself in my own, remind me of how far I've come. The phantom pain comes less frequently now, both the physical sensation from my missing limb and the emotional ache from my missing family. "You're stalling," I mutter to myself, reaching for the prosthetic. With practiced movements, I secure it in place, the familiar routine grounding me before the conversation ahead. My reflection in the microwave door shows a woman with determined eyes and a jaw set with purpose. Captain Sullivan reporting for duty, even if the battlefield is now emotional rather than physical. At precisely 7 a.m., I dial the number. Professional courtesy. Not too early, not too late. The line rings twice. Before my father's voice answers, sounding older than I remember. "Jamie?" The surprise in his tone suggests he didn't expect me to actually call. "Hold on, let me get your mother." I hear muffled voices, then my mother comes on the line, her words tumbling out with uncharacteristic disorganization. "Jamie, thank you for calling back. We weren't sure. After everything, it's good to hear your voice." "I understand you're in financial trouble," I reply, keeping my voice neutral, the professional tone I use with difficult clients. Grace filled me in on some details, but I'd like to hear the complete situation directly from you. My father's voice returns, evidently on speakerphone now. "Your sister shouldn't have worried you with this. We're having a temporary cash flow issue with the business, nothing I can't handle." The familiar dismissal of reality makes my jaw clench. Some things never change. A foreclosure notice isn't temporary, Dad. Neither is maxing out Grace's credit cards without a repayment plan. Silence stretches across the line before my mother speaks. "Jamie, please. Your father's startup investment didn't work out as planned. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage, and the bank won't extend any further credit. We've sold what we can, but it's not enough." "The founder was credible," my father interrupts defensively. "MIT educated, multiple successful exits. How was I supposed to know he'd disappear with the capital raise?" I take a deep breath, counting silently to 5. A technique Dr. Levine taught me for managing frustration. Basic due diligence would have revealed several red flags, I'm sure. But that's not why I called. How much do you need to bring the mortgage current and pay off Grace's cards? More silence, then paper rustling. My father clears his throat. "Approximately $42,000 for the mortgage arrears and immediate property tax. Another $17,000 for Grace's credit cards. And the business debts? That's not your concern," he responds sharply, pride momentarily overriding desperation. I glance at my watch. The morning executive meeting starts in an hour, and I haven't even showered yet. "It is if you're asking for my help. Full transparency. Or no assistance." My mother makes a small, distressed sound. "Richard, please." Papers rustle again. "Business liabilities around $215,000, he finally admits. But those creditors will work with me once the immediate personal liabilities are resolved. The total nears $275,000. Not an insignificant sum, but well within my means. The question isn't whether I can help, but whether I should and under what conditions. I need to get to work, I tell them. I'll call you back tonight after I've reviewed the complete financial picture. Jamie, we don't have much time, my mother pleads. The foreclosure hearing is scheduled for next week. Then you should have called me sooner, I reply, ending the call before they can respond. The shower's hot water soothes the connection point where flesh meets prosthetic, always slightly tender in the morning. As I dress in a charcoal suit, my armor for the corporate battlefield, I catch myself in the mirror, seeing the straight spine and squared shoulders that command respect in boardrooms. So different from the invisible daughter who could never measure up. At BastionShield's headquarters, I'm immediately pulled into the security briefing for the Pentagon contract. Trevor gives me a questioning look as I settle into my chair, silently asking if I'm okay. I give a slight nod, our shorthand for mission ready despite personal complications. Colonel Reeves presents the expanded requirements for the military security protocol. The Joint Chiefs want implementation across all forward operating bases within 6 months, he explains. Faster if possible. The security breaches in Sector 7 last month have everyone on high alert. We can do it in 4, I respond, mentally calculating resource allocation. But we'll need dedicated liaison officers at each major installation. The colonel nods approvingly. I expected nothing less from you, Sullivan. After the meeting disperses, Trevor follows me to my office. You look like you haven't slept, he observes, closing the door behind him. Family situation developing, I admit. They need financial bailout. He raises an eyebrow. The same family that didn't visit once during your 6 months at Walter Reed? That's the one. I shuffle papers on my desk, avoiding his gaze. They're about to lose their house. Trevor leans against the doorframe, arms crossed. And you're considering helping them? I'm considering my options. Your call, Sullivan, but remember what happened with Davis. He's referring to another veteran in our company who emptied his savings to help estranged parents, only to have them demand more until he nearly lost his own home. I'm not Davis, I reply. Any assistance will come with clearly defined parameters. He nods, accepting my assessment. The team's finalizing the security protocol implementation timeline. Need you in the conference room at 1300. After he leaves, I pull up my banking details, calculating exactly what I can spare without compromising my own security. The military taught me to always maintain strategic reserves, financial, emotional, physical. Never commit all your resources to a single front. A notification pops up on my screen. A meeting reminder for lunch with Dr. Levine, my therapist. Perfect timing. The discreet restaurant near her office provides the privacy needed for our monthly check-in sessions. Dr. Levine, a specialist in veteran reintegration and family trauma, has been instrumental in my recovery journey. You've made the decision to help them, she observes after I explain the situation, her gray eyes missing nothing behind stylish glasses. But you're struggling with the terms. I spear a piece of grilled chicken, considering her assessment. They've never respected my boundaries before. Why would financial dependency change that pattern? It won't without explicit consequences, she replies. What are you hoping to achieve beyond resolving their immediate crisis? The question catches me off guard. What do I want? Financial stability for Grace, certainly. But from my parents? Recognition? I finally admit. Not gratitude, but acknowledgement that my life choices weren't failures. That I've succeeded by every objective measure, despite their predictions. Dr. Levine nods. And if they can't provide that? Then the money comes with different strings attached, formal agreements, payment schedules, collateral, business terms. For a family transaction. They made it clear 5 years ago that I wasn't family anymore, I remind her. They don't get to claim those privileges now that they need something from me. She takes a sip of water, considering her next words carefully. Jamie, you've worked hard to build a life defined by your terms, not theirs. Whatever you decide, ensure it reinforces that independence, not compromises it. By the time I return to the office, my strategy has solidified. I call my financial advisor and attorney, arranging for specific documents to be prepared. Then I text Grace, asking for copies of all financial records she has access to. The analysis confirms what I suspected. My parents' financial house of cards has been precarious for years, held together by overextended credit and my father's stubborn pride. Late afternoon sun slants across my desk as I review the Pentagon contract one final time before submission. The estimated value, $7.3 million annually with potential renewals for 5 years, represents BastionShield's largest contract to date. A testament to the security protocols I developed based on what I learned in Afghanistan, both about technical vulnerabilities and human ones. My phone buzzes with a text from Sophia. Still on for dinner tonight? Made reservations at that new place on Valencia you mentioned. I hesitate, knowing the conversation with my parents will likely run long. Need to rain check again. Family situation developing. Will explain tomorrow? Her reply comes quickly. This is becoming a pattern, Jamie. I'm here when you're ready to let me in. The gentle admonishment stings precisely because it's justified. For 2 years, I've kept Sophia at arm's length from my family trauma, compartmentalizing that part of my life even while building a relationship with her. Another boundary that served its purpose, but may now be limiting my growth. At 6 p.m., most of the office has cleared out. I pull up the documents my attorney emailed, 2 distinct proposals for my parents. The first, a formal loan agreement with reasonable terms, legally binding and secured by their house. The second, a more comprehensive restructuring that would clear their debts entirely but require financial transparency and weekly check-ins with a financial counselor of my choosing. Either option would solve their immediate crisis. The question is whether they're truly seeking help, or just a quick fix that allows them to maintain the same patterns that created the problem. I dial their number again, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. Jamie, my mother answers immediately. We've been waiting for your call. Your father's here too. I've reviewed your financial situation, I begin, slipping into the analytical tone that has served me well in countless briefings. Based on the information Grace provided and public records, I understand the full scope of the crisis. Then you'll help? The hope in her voice makes me falter momentarily. I can, but we need to establish parameters first. My father's voice cuts in. What kind of parameters? This is a family matter, not a business transaction. That's where you're wrong, Dad. You both made it explicitly clear when I enlisted that I was no longer part of the family. You can't claim family privileges now just because it's convenient. The sharp intake of breath on the other end suggests my directness has hit its mark. Jamie, you know we were upset about your decision, my mother begins, her placating tone familiar from childhood moments when she mediated between my father's demands and my resistance. We've regretted how things ended. Not enough to reach out in 5 years, I counter. Not when I was wounded in Kandahar. Not when I received the Bronze Star. Not when BastionShield secured its first major contract. Silence stretches between us, heavy with unspoken accusations. What are your terms? My father finally asks, his voice tight. I'm sending over 2 options. Review them with your attorney if you wish, but I need your decision by tomorrow. I explain both proposals in clinical detail, emphasizing the accountability mechanisms built into each. You'd make your own parents sign a contract? The disbelief in my father's voice would be almost comical if it weren't so predictable. I'd require anyone requesting $275,000 to formalize the arrangement, I correct him. Basic financial responsibility. We raised you better than this, he mutters. The comment ignites something I've suppressed for years. No, Dad, you raised me to believe nothing I did was ever good enough. that my achievements were expected while my sister's participation trophies deserved celebration. You raised me to measure my worth against impossible standards, then cut me off when I chose a path you didn't approve of. My voice remains steady even as the words carry years of accumulated pain. You didn't bother to learn that I was selected for specialized training from hundreds of applicants, or that my security protocols saved lives in theater, or that after being injured, I built a company valued at over $40 million. In your eyes, I remained a failure because I didn't follow your narrow definition of success. My mother's soft crying comes through the line, but for once, I don't feel compelled to comfort her or apologize for speaking my truth. If you want my help, I continue, it comes with acknowledgment of that reality. I'm not the failure you predicted. I succeeded despite your absence, not because of your support. What exactly do you want from us, Jamie? My father asks, his voice subdued in a way I've rarely heard. Respect, I answer simply. Not gratitude, not praise, just basic respect for the life I've built and the choices I've made. The financial terms are in the documents. The personal terms are that you acknowledge I didn't fail. I just succeeded differently than you planned. Another long silence follows. I can almost see my father's expression, the tight jaw, the calculating eyes assessing options like the engineer he's always been. We'll review the documents, he finally says. And Jamie, for what it's worth, we did track your career. The article in Tech Security Monthly last year, the patent announcements. The revelation surprises me. They'd been watching from afar while maintaining their silence. Before I can respond, he continues, we didn't know how to reach out after so much time had passed. Pride is a difficult thing to overcome, especially when you've been proven wrong. It's the closest to an admission I've ever heard from him. Not an apology, not full recognition, but a hairline crack in the wall of disapproval I've pushed against my entire life. Review the documents, I repeat, unwilling to accept partial acknowledgement as sufficient. We'll talk tomorrow. After hanging up, I remain at my desk, watching night settle over San Francisco. The city lights flicker on one by one, each representing someone's sanctuary, someone's home. For years, I've built mine with reinforced walls against the very people who should have been its foundation. Now they're asking for entry, not through love or reconciliation, but through financial necessity. The question remains whether helping them will strengthen my hard-won peace or undermine it. What would you require from those who dismissed you before accepting their plea for help? Is setting conditions on assistance an act of self-respect or perpetuation of the same conditional love they demonstrated? The morning sun catches on the edge of my bronze star as I adjust the display case in my living room. For years, I've kept my military honors tucked away in a drawer, but something about yesterday's conversation with my parents has prompted me to place them where I can see them, a reminder of what I've earned on my own terms. My phone chimes with an incoming email, the signed agreement from my parents, Option 2, with the full debt restructuring and financial counseling requirements. Their electronic signatures look small on my screen, my father's usually confident scrawl appearing hesitant, almost reluctant. I forward the document to my attorney with instructions to proceed, then dial Grace's number. She answers immediately, as though she's been waiting by the phone. They signed, I tell her without preamble. The financial counselor will contact them today to begin the process. Her relieved exhale comes through clearly. Thank you, Jamie. I know this isn't easy for you. The agreement includes paying off your credit cards and establishing a separate account to fund your nursing program, I explain. They won't have access to that money. It's protected. Silence hangs between us momentarily. You didn't have to do that, she finally says. Yes, I did. You've been collateral damage in their financial mismanagement long enough. Grace's voice catches as she responds. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to. Just finish your degree and build your own life. I hesitate before adding, and maybe come visit San Francisco sometime. I have a guest room that's never been used. I'd like that, she says, the smile evident in her voice. After hanging up, I check the time. 0700, still early enough to hit the gym before work. Physical training remains my most effective stress management technique, the rhythm of movement, creating space where my thoughts can settle into proper formation. The private gym in my building caters to professionals who value efficiency and privacy. At this hour, it's nearly empty except for a familiar figure on the rowing machine, Sophia. She spots me as I enter, her expression a mixture of surprise and restraint. "Didn't expect to see you here," she says as I approach. "Thought you had?" "An early meeting." "Rescheduled," I reply, setting down my gym bag. "About last night." "3 cancellations in a week, Jamie," she interrupts, her strokes on the rowing machine maintaining perfect rhythm despite our conversation. "I understand emergencies happen, but this pattern of shutting me out whenever family issues arise isn't working for me." The directness of her assessment hits with precision. Sophia has never been one to sidestep difficult conversations, a quality that initially attracted me to her. "You're right," I acknowledge, settling onto the bench beside her machine rather than starting my own workout. "I've been compartmentalizing, keeping you separate from the mess with my parents." She completes her set before turning to face me, fully. "Couples share messes, Jamie. That's part of the deal." "My parents signed the financial agreement this morning," I tell her, offering this information as a small breach in my usual walls. "Full debt restructuring with oversight." Sophia wipes her face with a towel, studying me with the perceptive gaze that misses nothing. "And how do you feel about that?" The question catches me off guard. So simple, yet so rarely asked throughout my life. How do I feel? Not what's the strategic assessment or the tactical advantage, but the actual emotional impact. Conflicted, I admit. The word feeling strange in my mouth. Helping them financially is straightforward. The personal reckoning that comes with it is more complicated. She reaches out, her fingers linking with mine. "Have dinner with me tonight. Real dinner, no cancellations. Tell me everything." "Everything's a lot," I warn her, thinking of the years of accumulated history. "I've got time," she replies simply. At BastionShield, the day unfolds with the controlled chaos of a rapidly expanding organization. The Pentagon contract has necessitated hiring additional security analysts, and my afternoon is booked with interviews. Between candidates, I check my phone to find a message from the financial counselor confirming her initial appointment with my parents. "First meeting completed," her text reads. Reluctant engagement from Richard. More receptive response from Helen. Basic financial controls. Implemented. I'm not surprised by my father's resistance. A man who's spent decades believing his financial judgment is infallible doesn't easily accept external oversight, even when his decisions have led to near bankruptcy. The next candidate enters, a young veteran with cybersecurity training and a prosthetic arm similar to Trevor's. His resume shows tremendous potential obscured by the employment gaps common to wounded warriors navigating recovery. "Staff Sergeant Miller," I greet him, noting how he sits at attention despite the corporate setting. "Your experience with perimeter security protocols in Mosul is particularly relevant to our current projects." He nods, eyes momentarily registering surprise at my knowledge of military security frameworks. "Yes, ma'am. We implemented adaptive response measures that reduced breach attempts by 64% during my deployment." The interview flows more naturally than the previous 3, his technical expertise evident despite his occasionally halting descriptions. When he struggles to translate a military procedure into corporate terminology, I provide the bridge, watching relief wash over his features. "You understand the crossover challenges," he observes during a pause. "Intimately," I confirm, gesturing subtly toward my prosthetic leg, normally hidden by my desk, but visible during the conference room interview. Kandahar, 2018. His posture relaxes incrementally, the universal response of one veteran recognizing another. The shared experience that transcends words. BastionShield has a specific onboarding process for veterans, I explain as the interview concludes. Our transition specialist will contact you tomorrow to discuss next steps. His expression remains carefully neutral, but hope flickers in his eyes. The same cautious optimism I once held while interviewing for my first civilian position, uncertain if my military experience would be valued or viewed as a liability. After he leaves, I add his file to our priority candidates folder. Another life in transition, another story of reinvention. Late afternoon brings an unexpected visitor to my office. Trevor appears in my doorway holding a manila envelope. Security footage from the Peterson contract site, he explains, placing it on my desk. Thought you'd want to review it personally before tomorrow's briefing. I nod my thanks, but he remains, standing there, eyes evaluating me with the directness of our shared military background. Family situation resolved? He asks. Managed, I correct him. Not the same thing. A slight nod acknowledges the distinction. Maintaining operational security on the home front? Our shorthand makes me smile despite the day's tensions. Working. On implementing new protocols. Integration rather than isolation. Good, he says, understanding immediately. Sophia deserves to be briefed in. Before I can respond, my desk phone lights up, reception calling. Ms. Sullivan, there's a Mr. Richard Sullivan asking to see you. No appointment. Surprise ripples. Through me. My father is here? In San Francisco? He hates flying. Has always refused to travel unless absolutely necessary. Send him up, I reply, exchanging a glance with Trevor, who reads the situation instantly. Want backup? He offers. I've got this, I assure him, though uncertainty churns beneath my composed exterior. Trevor's hand briefly touches my shoulder as he leaves, the silent communication of someone who has literally had my back in combat zones. He pulls my office door closed behind him, affording privacy for whatever confrontation awaits. Minutes later, a knock announces my father's arrival. When I call for him to enter, the door opens to reveal a man who seems to have aged a decade in 5 years. His hair, once dark with distinguished silver at the temples, has fully grayed. The confident posture I remember has yielded to a slight stoop, his shoulders carrying an invisible weight. Jamie, he says, his voice lacking its customary authority. Thank you for seeing me. I gesture to the visitor chair, maintaining the professional distance my office setting provides. This is unexpected. I thought we'd concluded our business via the signed agreement. He settles into the chair, glancing around my office with undisguised curiosity, taking in the industry awards, the security patents displayed on the wall, the view of San Francisco from my corner window. Evidence of the success he never anticipated. Isn't about the financial arrangement, he says, hands resting uneasily on his knees. Though I do want to thank you for your generosity. The word seems to cost him something, and I realize he's reading from an unfamiliar script, one where he's not dictating terms but accepting them. What brings you to San Francisco, Dad? I ask directly. He reaches into his jacket pocket and withdraws a small velvet box, placing it on the desk between us. This belonged to your grandmother. She wanted you to have it when you'd found your path, as she put it. I should have given it to you years ago. I don't reach for the box immediately, studying him instead. Why now? His gaze drops momentarily before meeting mine again with unusual vulnerability. The financial counselor made me complete an accountability exercise this morning, listing all my major financial decisions and their outcomes over the past decade. A bitter smile crosses his face. It was illuminating to see the pattern in black and white. My investments failed. My business strategies failed. My retirement planning failed. He gestures toward me. While the daughter I labeled a failure built this. I remain silent, allowing him to continue without interruption, a technique I learned from Dr. Levine. Your mother found me examining old photos after the counselor left, he continues. Pictures from your high school graduation, college awards. She asked why I couldn't acknowledge your accomplishments the way I did Grace's. He shakes his head slightly. I told her it was because you didn't need the encouragement. You were always capable, always driven. Grace needed the extra support. The familiar rationalization makes my jaw tighten, but I maintain my neutral expression, letting him speak his piece. Your mother said something I can't stop thinking about, he admits. She said, everyone needs to be seen, Richard. Even the strong ones, especially them. The words hang in the air between us, remarkably insightful coming from a woman who participated in my invisibility for years. I couldn't sleep last night, my father continues. The financial relief you've provided comes with strings I find challenging, weekly counseling, spending approvals, transparency requirements, basic accountability, I correct him. Yes, he acknowledges with surprising humility. The very things I failed to practice while criticizing your choices. He pushes the velvet box closer to me. I took an early flight this morning because some things need to be said in person. I finally reach for the box, opening it to reveal an elegant sapphire ring I remember from childhood visits to my grandmother's house. She'd promised it would be mine someday, though I'd assumed that promise was forgotten after I was cut off from the family. Your grandmother saw something in you long before you joined the military, my father says quietly. She told me once that you had her spirit, the determination to forge your own path regardless of others' expectations. I slip the ring onto my finger, surprised to find it fits perfectly. My grandmother's hands had been like mine, strong, capable, unapologetic. I've spent years measuring success by a single standard, my father continues. One that served me well in my youth, but failed me, failed us all as the world changed. Your mother and I tracked your career from afar, saw your name in industry publications, read about your patents and your company's growth. He gestures toward my prosthetic leg. And we learned about Kandahar from Grace. Too late to be at your bedside, but not too late to recognize what it means. And what does it mean, Dad? I ask, breaking my silence. That my definition of success was tragically limited, he replies, meeting my gaze directly. And that I owe you more than financial repayment. I owe you recognition. My office phone buzzes, my assistant reminding me of the 4:00 meeting starting in 5 minutes. I acknowledge the reminder but don't move to end this unexpected conversation. The financial arrangements stand, I tell my father, keeping my voice even. They're necessary given the circumstances. He nods his acceptance. I understand. I didn't come to renegotiate terms. Then why did you come? I press him. To tell you that you were right, he says simply. About your path, about your choices. You built something remarkable while I was busy dismissing it because it didn't fit my narrow vision. The admission ripples through years of accumulated disappointment, not erasing it, but creating a small break in its previously impenetrable surface. I have a meeting, I tell him, rising from my chair, and dinner plans after work. He stands as well, clearly recognizing the dismissal. Of course, I've taken enough of your time. As he turns to leave, I find myself speaking. Dad? There's a decent hotel 2 blocks down if you're staying overnight, and I'm having dinner with someone important to me, someone I'd like you to meet if you're still here tomorrow. He pauses at the door, surprise evident in his expression. I'd like that, Jamie. After he leaves, I remain standing by my window, the sapphire ring catching light as I turn my hand. Not a peace offering that erases years of conditional approval, but perhaps the beginning of a different kind of relationship, one based on the adults we are now, rather than the expectations that divided us before. My phone chimes with a text from Sophia. Still on for dinner? Absolutely, I reply. And I have quite a story to tell you. Is forgiveness possible without forgetting the past? When does accepting someone's recognition become healing rather than surrendering your hard-won independence? The restaurant hums, with quiet conversation as I study Sophia's expression across the table. Candlelight catches in her dark curls and illuminates the subtle shifts in her features as I recount my father's unexpected visit. She listens without interruption. A gift she's always given me, as I share the decades of conditional approval, the cutting off, and today's tentative olive branch. So the great Richard Sullivan flew all the way to San Francisco just to give you a ring and an acknowledgment, she summarizes when I finish, twirling her wine glass thoughtfully. That's quite a development for a man you described as pathologically unable to admit mistakes. I trace the edge of my grandmother's sapphire on my finger, still getting used to its weight. Financial desperation is a powerful motivator for change. Is that all you think it is? Sophia challenges gently. Just a calculated move to secure your ongoing financial support? The question lands precisely where my own doubts circulate. I don't know, I admit. 5 years of silence broken only when they need money. It's hard to separate genuine recognition from strategic manipulation. She reaches across the table, her hand covering mine. What does your tactical assessment tell you? You've always had good instincts about people's motivations. I consider the question, applying the same analytical approach I use for security threat evaluations. His body language was different, less commanding, more uncertain. And flying here rather than handling it remotely suggests importance beyond the financial transaction. I pause, weighing the evidence. But 5 years is a long time to ignore someone's existence, only to suddenly value it when your house is on the line. People change, Sophia offers. Sometimes crisis creates clarity. Or desperation, I counter. Her thumb strokes the back of my hand, her touch grounding as always. Either way, you've established clear boundaries. The financial agreement protects you, no matter his motivations. This perspective, so characteristic of Sophia's pragmatic optimism, shifts something in my thinking. The legal agreement creates a protected perimeter within which I can cautiously evaluate this new version of my father without risking further damage. I invited him to meet you, I tell her. Tomorrow night, if he's still in town. Her eyes widen slightly, the only indication of her surprise. That's a significant step for you. You're significant to me, I reply simply. And if he's serious about building a different relationship, he should know who's important in my life. The waiter arrives with our entrees, momentarily pausing our conversation. When he leaves, Sophia studies me with the perceptive gaze that first caught my attention. 2 years ago at a cybersecurity conference. The look that seems to decode my encryption without effort. Are you hoping for reconciliation? She asks directly. The question deserves careful consideration. I'm not sure reconciliation is the right word, I finally answer. I'm not seeking to restore what was. That relationship was fundamentally unbalanced. But I'm open to building something new if he's genuinely capable of seeing me as I am, not as he wanted me to be. And your mother? I sigh, cutting into my steak with perhaps more force than necessary. She was always the passive enabler, following Dad's lead, smoothing things over without addressing the underlying issues. If she's still playing that role, then any change in him won't matter much. Sophia nods, understanding the family dynamics I've described. What about Grace? How does she fit into this new arrangement? I've protected her financially, I explain. Her nursing program is funded separately from their debt restructuring. She won't be collateral damage anymore. You're a good sister, Sophia observes. I'm trying to be. Better than I've been, anyway. The admission comes with unexpected emotion. I kept my distance from her, too, after the fallout. She didn't cut me off like they did, but she stayed in their orbit, which meant limited contact. And now? Now I've invited her to visit, to build an adult relationship separate from our parents. Influence. The conversation shifts to Sophia's day. her work as an environmental attorney, the clean water case she's been building against a manufacturing corporation. I listen intently, grateful for her ability to share her challenges and triumphs without reservation, a level of transparency I'm still learning to reciprocate. Over dessert, she asks the question I've been expecting all evening. What happens after the financial crisis is resolved? When they no longer need your help? Do you think, this change in your father will last? That's the million-dollar question, I admit. Literally, given the financial commitment. And your answer? I consider everything I know about human behavior, about crisis response patterns, about my father specifically. Sustainability requires structural change, not just crisis intervention. The financial oversight will help with the practical aspects, but the relationship piece, I shake my head slightly. That depends on whether his recognition of my worth is truly separate from his current need. And if it isn't? Her question is gentle but direct. Then I'll have done right by my sister, helped prevent my parents from homelessness, and maintained my own boundaries throughout. I meet her gaze steadily. I won't lose myself trying to be seen by someone incapable of seeing me. The certainty in my voice surprises even me. 5 years ago, such clarity would have been impossible, the desperate need for parental approval still too powerful to resist. But the woman who returned from Afghanistan is not the girl who left for basic training. The crucible of combat and recovery forged something stronger, more resilient. Walking back to my apartment after dinner, Sophia's hand in mine, I feel a strange sense of peace despite the uncertainty ahead. The city lights shimmer against the night sky, a perfect San Francisco evening unmarred by fog. Stay tonight? I ask as we approach my building, the request still new enough to carry a hint of vulnerability despite our 2 years together. She smiles, squeezing my hand. I brought an overnight bag to work this morning. Optimistic planning. In my apartment, while Sophia showers, I check my phone to find a text from my father. Had dinner with an old engineering school colleague who lives here. Would still like to meet your friend tomorrow if the offer stands. Staying at the hotel you recommended. I text back a dinner reservation time and place, then set my phone aside. On my bedside table sits the small velvet box that held my grandmother's ring, now empty. I trace its worn edges, remembering the strong-willed woman who wore this sapphire for decades, the grandmother who always saw me clearly even when my parents didn't. She would have been proud of you, my father had said today, referring to my grandmother. Perhaps the first straight acknowledgment of pride related to my choices that he'd ever expressed. Sophia emerges from the bathroom in one of my army t-shirts she's claimed as sleepwear, her damp hair curling around her shoulders. Heavy thoughts? She asks, noticing my expression. Processing, I reply, using our shorthand for working through complex emotions. Today feels significant, but I'm not sure yet how much weight to give it. She sits beside me on the bed, gently taking the empty ring box from my hands and setting it aside. You don't have to decide tonight, or tomorrow, or next month. Healing isn't linear, and neither is building trust. Her wisdom, as always, creates space for me to breathe. No immediate tactical response required, no strategic position to defend. Just time to observe and evaluate before committing resources. Morning arrives with golden light filtering through the bedroom blinds. I wake before my alarm, military habits persisting even in civilian life. Sophia sleeps peacefully beside me, her presence a still surprising comfort in my otherwise carefully ordered world. My phone buzzes softly with an incoming text, Grace confirming her flight details for next weekend's visit. The pieces of a fragmented family slowly shifting into new configurations, relationships being cautiously reassessed and rebuilt. I slip out of bed quietly, attaching my prosthetic with practiced movements before heading to the kitchen. Coffee. Brews while I review overnight security alerts from BastionShield's monitoring systems, the ritual that starts each day, keeping me connected to the company even from home. By the time Sophia joins me, I've cleared urgent messages and prepared breakfast. She accepts the offered coffee with a grateful smile, still bleary-eyed despite the hour. "You military types and your ungodly morning efficiency," she grumbles good-naturedly. "Some habits serve me well," I reply, placing toast and sliced fruit on the kitchen island between us. "Have you decided what you're going to wear tonight? For dinner with your father?" she asks between sips of coffee. The question catches me off guard. Clothing choices rarely factor into my tactical planning beyond appropriate professional attire. "I hadn't thought about it," I admit. Sophia's expression turns thoughtful. "It's an interesting question, isn't it? Do you dress as Captain Sullivan, the decorated veteran? Jamie, the successful CEO? Or something else entirely?" Her observation cuts to the heart of my unspoken concern about tonight's dinner. Which version of myself do I present to a father who never fully saw any of them? "I've been all those people," I reply slowly, "but he's never really known any of them." "Then perhaps tonight is about integration rather than selection," she suggests. "Bringing your whole self to the table instead of the compartmentalized versions you've needed to survive." The concept resonates with recent conversations in therapy. Dr. Levine's emphasis on integration as the path to healing. Not cutting off parts of myself to fit others' expectations, but bringing all aspects into coherent wholeness. At BastionShield's headquarters, the morning unfolds with the controlled intensity of a growing company. The Pentagon contract implementation team delivers their timeline presentation with Staff Sergeant Miller, now officially hired, contributing valuable insights on military communication protocols. Trevor catches me after the meeting, falling into step beside me as I head back to my office. "How'd it go with the father situation?" he asks without preamble. "Evolving," I reply, appreciating his direct approach. "Meeting him for dinner tonight with Sophia." His eyebrows rise slightly, the most surprise he ever shows. "That's a significant tactical shift from your previous position." "Controlled engagement on neutral territory," I explain, knowing he'll understand the strategic thinking. "With reinforcements present." A slight smile crosses his face at the military framing. "Smart. Sophia's good at reading people." "Better than I am in some ways," I acknowledge, "especially with family dynamics." "Family's always the most difficult terrain to navigate," he observes as we reach my office. "Clear fields of fire are rare." The metaphor, grim as it is, perfectly captures the complexity of tonight's dinner. Unlike military operations with defined objectives and exit strategies, family reconciliations involve shifting emotional landscapes and unclear measures of success. Late afternoon brings a video call with the financial counselor managing my parents' restructuring. Her screen shows neatly organized spreadsheets and transaction records, the first comprehensive overview of their financial situation. "They've been cooperative so far," she reports. "Your mother especially has embraced the budgeting tools." "Your father is," she pauses, searching for a diplomatic term. "Resistant?" I suggest. "Adjusting," she corrects with professional neutrality. "The transparency requirements are challenging for him, but he's complying with the terms." We discuss the implementation timeline and monitoring protocols before she adds, "He mentioned he's in San Francisco meeting with you. That's a positive sign of engagement." After the call ends, I sit quietly, contemplating the evening ahead. On my desk sits a framed photo from Afghanistan. My unit gathered outside our forward operating base, faces dusty but determined. People who saw me clearly, valued my contributions, and trusted my judgment without qualification. The stark contrast with my family experience has always been both painful and illuminating. In the military, I found the recognition and belonging my home never provided. The clear standards, the merit-based advancement, the visceral trust that forms when lives depend on mutual competence. Tonight's dinner represents a potential bridge, Between those separate worlds, the family that couldn't see me and the life I built beyond their narrow vision. Not a restoration of what was lost, but perhaps the beginning of something that never properly existed. I opened my desk drawer and removed the small velvet pouch containing my military challenge coin, given to me by my commanding officer after the operation that earned my Bronze Star. The weight of it in my palm centers me, a tangible reminder of who I am regardless of my father's ability to recognize it. As I prepare to leave for the day, Trevor stops by one final time. "Rules of engagement for tonight?" he asks, leaning against my doorframe. I slip the challenge coin into my pocket. "Establish boundaries, maintain tactical awareness, prioritize protecting Sophia from crossfire." He nods approvingly. "And your primary objective?" The question makes me pause, considering what success would actually look like in this complicated reunion. "Assessment," I finally answer. Determining whether sustainable change is possible, or if this is just crisis-motivated compliance. "Solid." "Plan," he confirms. "Extraction strategy in place if needed?" Sophia's prepared to call with an emergency if things go sideways. His expression turns serious. "Just remember, Sullivan, you've already won the longer war. Tonight's just a single engagement in a campaign you've already strategically dominated." His framing brings unexpected clarity, regardless of how dinner unfolds. My life's trajectory remains secure. My success, my relationships, my carefully constructed peace exist independent of my father's acknowledgment. I touch the sapphire ring on my finger, my grandmother's legacy now a part of my daily life. Tonight's not about winning, I tell Trevor. It's about determining whether peace negotiations are possible. Can conditional love evolve into genuine respect? Is recognition meaningful when it comes only after proving yourself beyond any possible doubt? The restaurant I've chosen for dinner sits on the waterfront, elegant without being ostentatious. Neutral territory with clear sightlines and multiple exits, habits from military training that still inform my civilian choices. Sophia and I arrive 15 minutes early, allowing me to select a corner table with views of both the entrance and the bay beyond. "Tactical positioning?" Sophia asks with a knowing smile as we settle in. "Old habits," I acknowledge, adjusting my prosthetic beneath the table. I've chosen to wear a dress that doesn't hide my artificial limb, a conscious decision after this morning's conversation about integration rather than compartmentalization. Sophia reaches across the table to straighten my necklace, a simple silver chain holding my military dog tags, normally hidden beneath my clothing but displayed tonight. "Perfect," she says, understanding the statement I'm making without needing explanation. My father arrives precisely on time, another trait we share despite our differences. He pauses momentarily at the entrance, scanning the room before his gaze finds me. Something flickers across his expression, recognition mingled with surprise, as he takes in my appearance. The confident woman in a designer dress with a visible prosthetic and military tags is clearly not the daughter he remembers. "Jamie," he says as he reaches our table, voice carrying a formality that suggests uncertainty about the appropriate greeting. "Thank you for arranging this." I stand to make introductions, noting how he seems to have aged overnight. The hotel lighting less forgiving than my office illumination yesterday. "Dad, this is Sophia Mendez. Sophia, my father, Richard." "Sullivan." "A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Sullivan," Sophia says, extending her hand with the professional confidence that makes her formidable in courtrooms. "I've heard quite a bit about you." A flash of concern crosses his features. Understandable, given what I might have shared. But he recovers quickly. "All justified, I'm sure," he replies with unexpected self-awareness. "And please, call me Richard." The initial awkwardness eases somewhat as we order drinks, then settles back in as the waiter departs. My father fills the silence with a careful observation. This is a beautiful restaurant. You've done well for yourself, Jamie. BastionShield has been successful, I reply, deflecting the personal praise to the company. We specialize in security protocols for high-risk environments, something my military experience prepared me for uniquely. His gaze drops momentarily to my prosthetic leg, then back to my face. Grace mentioned you were injured in Afghanistan. We didn't get many details. The unspoken question hangs between us. Why weren't we informed directly? The answer, of course, is that I'd removed them from my emergency contact information after they cut ties, replacing them with Trevor's name. IED strike during a convoy. Operation, I explain clinically. We were implementing new route security protocols when we were hit. Lost the lower portion of my left leg. Spent 6 months at Walter Reed for surgeries and rehabilitation. My father's expression tightens. And we weren't notified. You made your position clear when I enlisted, I remind him, keeping my voice even. I respected your decision to cut ties. Sophia's hand finds mine under the table, a silent support as the conversation navigates difficult terrain. That was, my father begins, then stops, seeming to recalibrate. I made a tremendous mistake, he finally says. One I've had 5 years to regret, though not enough courage to address until circumstances forced my hand. The candid admission surprises me, so different from the defensive posturing I'd expected. Before I can respond, the waiter returns, with our drinks and takes our dinner orders, providing a moment of reprieve from the emotional intensity. When he leaves, Sophia skillfully redirects the conversation. Richard, Jamie tells me you were an engineering consultant for many years. I'd be interested to hear about your work. My father relaxes slightly at the shift to familiar territory. Structural engineering was my specialty. I consulted on everything from bridges to high-rises across the Midwest. Pride enters his voice as he describes past projects, significant buildings that still stand as testament to his professional competence. The parallel isn't lost on me. How differently he speaks about his own accomplishments compared to how he acknowledged mine. The recognition and validation he readily claims for himself while withholding it from his daughter. The Sullivan Engineering Consultancy had a solid reputation, he continues, his expression clouding. Until my investment mistakes destroyed it. Dad, you don't need to, I begin, uncomfortable with the vulnerability he's displaying. Yes, I do, he interrupts gently. Part of the financial counseling program involves honest accountability. I made catastrophic decisions based on pride and overconfidence, the same pride that kept me from acknowledging your success because it didn't follow the path I'd predetermined. Sophia squeezes my hand beneath the table as my father continues. I had a certain vision of success. Prestigious university, followed by a respected professional degree, then partnership in an established firm. It was the path that worked for me, that brought me recognition in my community. He takes a sip of his drink before adding, when you chose military service, I viewed it as settling for less. I couldn't have been more wrong. The admission hangs between us as our appetizers arrive. For a few minutes we eat in relative silence, the weight of his words settling into the space around us. Your military service, my father eventually continues, was the beginning of something I couldn't see at the time. You built a security company from the ground up, patented protocols that save lives, created something with impact far beyond what my conventional path ever achieved. How did you track my career? I ask, curious about his earlier comment that they'd followed my professional development from afar. Industry publications at first, he explains. Your name appeared in an article about veterans transforming cybersecurity. Then your patent announcements? Your mother set up Google alerts for your name after you left. This revelation, that they'd been watching silently from the periphery of my life, creates a complicated feeling I can't immediately identify. Not quite comfort, not entirely distress, but something in between. Why didn't you reach out? Sophia asks the question I'm thinking. My father's gaze drops to his plate. Pride, shame. The longer we waited, the more impossible it seemed to bridge the divide we'd created. Each new accomplishment we saw made our original rejection seem more foolish, more unforgivable. Until you needed financial help, I observe, the words emerging more sharply than intended. He nods, accepting the implied criticism. Crisis has a way of clarifying priorities. Losing everything forced me to confront not just financial failure, but personal failures as well. He looks directly at me. The financial agreement you required, with its counseling component, has been surprisingly illuminating. The main courses arrive, temporarily pausing our conversation. When the waiter departs, my father addresses Sophia. "How did you and Jamie meet?" "At a cybersecurity conference," she replies. "I was representing clients in a data breach case and attended Jamie's presentation on anticipatory threat assessment. Her approach to identifying vulnerabilities before they're exploited revolutionized how my firm handles digital evidence protection." The pride in her voice as she describes my work creates a stark contrast with my childhood experiences. Someone who sees my achievements clearly and celebrates them without qualification. 2 years together? My father asks. Yes, Sophia confirms. Though someone took her time introducing me to family. Her gentle teasing carries no resentment, just acknowledgment of my careful boundaries. That's my fault, my father admits immediately. Jamie's caution about family connections is a direct result of our failures as parents. His willingness to accept responsibility rather than deflect it represents such a departure from the father. I remember that I find myself studying him with renewed attention. The financial counselor's influence is evident in his language, the emphasis on accountability, the specific acknowledgment of impact rather than general apologies. The veterans at BastionShield became my family, I explain, offering this personal insight as a tentative step toward genuine exchange. People who understood both my military experience and the challenges of civilian reintegration. Trevor, my business partner, was in the same convoy when we were hit. We recovered at Walter Reed together, then built the company from our hospital, beds during rehabilitation. Turning trauma into purpose, Sophia adds softly. My father listens intently, his expression reflecting regret and something else. Perhaps recognition of the resilience he never fully acknowledged. Your mother wanted to contact you when we first read about your injury. I convinced her it would be unwelcome after our previous stance. It would have been, I confirm honestly. Then? And now? He asks cautiously. I consider the question carefully, aware of its significance. Now I'm open to establishing a new relationship, not restoring the old one, which was fundamentally imbalanced, but building something based on mutual respect and clear boundaries. Relief softens his features. That's more than I hoped for, Jamie. The financial agreement stays in place, I clarify. That's non-negotiable. I understand, he assures me. The structure is helpful, actually. Knowing exactly where the boundaries are provides clarity we've never had in our relationship. This insight, that clear expectations might benefit both of us rather than just protect me, creates a subtle shift in my thinking. Perhaps the formal agreement isn't just a defensive measure, but a foundation for something healthier than what existed before. Grace is visiting next weekend, I share, offering this as another step in the gradual reconstruction of family connections. We're working on building our relationship as adults, separate from parental influences. She's always admired you, my father says. Even when she didn't fully understand your choices, she defended you when... He stops, perhaps recognizing that some details might be better left unshared. When you and Mom criticized my decisions, I finish for him, preferring clarity to comfortable omissions. He nods, accepting this direct framing. Yes, she insisted you had your reasons, that we weren't seeing the full picture. Dessert arrives, a shared chocolate, something that Sophia ordered for the table. As we each take small portions, my father reaches into his jacket pocket and withdraws an envelope. "I brought something else that belongs to you," he explains, sliding it across the table. "Or at least belongs with you." I open the envelope to find photographs I've never seen before. Myself in my first military uniform at basic training graduation, standing tall with unmistakable pride. Another in combat fatigues in what appears to be Kandahar, surrounded by my unit. A third showing me in dress blues receiving what looks like my commission. "How did you get these?" I ask, confusion replacing my usual composure. "Grace," he admits. "She maintained contact with you in ways we didn't know about initially. She collected these over the years, hoping someday there would be reconciliation." The revelation that Grace served as a secret bridge between our separate worlds touches something deep within me. While I established firm boundaries with my parents, she found ways to maintain connections without violating them, creating an archive of the military career they refused to acknowledge. "We should have been there," my father says simply, looking at the photos. "At your graduation, your commission, your deployment. We should have supported your choice whether we understood it or not." The acknowledgement, so long withheld, creates a complicated surge of emotion I struggle to contain. Sophia's hand finds mine again, grounding me in the present moment rather than the echoing absence these images represent. "There's something else," my father continues hesitantly. "Your mother wants to video call, if you're willing. Not tonight," he adds quickly, seeing my expression, "but perhaps before I return to Minneapolis." The request represents another threshold in this evolving reconciliation, expanding the circle beyond our cautious one-on-one interactions. "I'll consider it," I reply, neither committing nor refusing. As dinner concludes and we prepare to leave, my father pauses before we part ways outside the restaurant. "Jamie, I know financial necessity prompted this reconnection, but I hope you believe that my recognition of your accomplishments isn't just crisis-motivated compliance." The military terminology, clearly chosen to speak my language, suggests he's been researching more than just my professional achievements, an effort to understand the person I've become rather than imposing the person he wanted me to be. "Time will tell," I respond honestly. Sustainable change requires consistent reinforcement, not just crisis intervention. He nods, accepting this measured response. "I'd like the opportunity to demonstrate that consistency, if you're willing to allow it." As Sophia and I watch him walk toward his hotel, she slips her arm through mine. "What do you think? Real change or temporary adjustment to secure financial support?" I consider everything I've observed tonight, the accountability language, the specific acknowledgments, the willingness to accept rather than defend. The financial counseling is having an impact, I assess carefully. Whether it creates lasting change beyond the crisis period remains to be seen. "And you?" she asks as we walk toward her car. "How are you processing all this?" The question deserves thoughtful consideration. It's strange, I finally admit, to have the recognition I once desperately wanted arrive now, when I no longer need it to validate my choices. There's a certain, irony isn't quite right. "Poetic justice?" Sophia suggests. "Maybe," I concede. That he recognizes my success only after his own has crumbled. That my failure now represents his best hope for stability. Back at my apartment, I place the photographs on my desk beside the military challenge coin. Visual representations of the life I built while invisible to those who should have seen me most clearly. "What will you tell Grace?" Sophia asks as she joins me, hair damp from her shower. "The truth," I reply. That I'm cautiously optimistic but maintaining boundaries. That her visit next weekend stands separate from whatever evolves with our parents. Sophia studies me with the perceptive gaze that has become so familiar. Most people would be either fully resistant or completely accepting in this situation. Your measured approach is uniquely you. Military planning, I explain with a small smile. Assess, establish secure perimeters, allow controlled engagement, evaluate results before expanding operations. She laughs softly, pressing a kiss to my temple. Only you would approach family reconciliation like a tactical mission. It's served me well so far, I remind her, though I understand her point. Some human connections require flexibility that rigid tactical thinking doesn't accommodate. Later, as Sophia sleeps beside me, I find myself awake, reviewing the evening's revelations. My father's acknowledgment of my success, while satisfying on one level, raises uncomfortable questions on another. Why should recognition be contingent on extraordinary achievement? Would I remain invisible if I'd chosen a conventional path but performed it merely adequately? The conditional nature of his approval, now granted because my success is undeniable rather than because I deserved support regardless, reveals the fundamental flaw in our family dynamic. One, I must be careful not to perpetuate in whatever new relationship we construct. My phone buzzes softly with a text from Grace. Dad says dinner went well. True? I type back. Better than expected. Looking forward to your visit next weekend. This is about us, not them. Her response comes quickly. Always has been. Love you, soldier. The simple acknowledgement of siblinghood, complicated but enduring, brings unexpected comfort. While parents may have failed to see me clearly, Grace maintained her own connection. Imperfect, but persistent. Tomorrow I'll decide whether to accept the video call with my mother. Tonight, I allow myself to acknowledge that despite my carefully constructed independence, some part of me still values being finally seen by those who once looked past me. Not because their recognition validates my worth, I've established that, firmly without them, but because it represents a human connection I'd resigned myself to living without. Is reconciliation worth pursuing when it comes only after you've proven yourself beyond any possible doubt? Can family relationships truly evolve once patterns of conditional recognition have been established? Morning light streams through my office windows as I review the quarterly security assessment for our Pentagon client. The familiar routine of analyzing vulnerabilities and strengthening defenses feels steadying after the emotional complexities of last night's dinner with my father. I've been at my desk since 5 a.m., finding comfort in work that follows clear protocols and measurable outcomes. A knock at my door announces Trevor's arrival. He enters with 2 coffee cups, setting one on my desk before taking a seat across from me. Figured you might need the reinforcement this morning. How'd the reconnaissance mission go? I accept the coffee gratefully. Better than anticipated. He acknowledged his mistakes without qualification. Used the exact terminology from the financial counseling program. Temporary compliance or genuine shift? Trevor asks, cutting to the core question as always. Too early for definitive assessment, I reply honestly. But he's showing indicators I didn't expect. Bringing photographs of my military service that Grace had collected, requesting a video call with my mother, using accountability language consistently. Trevor nods thoughtfully. And your tactical response? Measured engagement, maintaining boundaries while allowing for the possibility of authentic change. I pause, considering my next words carefully. I'm considering accepting the video call with my mother today, before he flies back to Minneapolis, expanding the operational parameters, Trevor observes. Confident in your containment strategy if things go sideways? The military framing helps me organize my thoughts about a situation that feels increasingly uncharted. Sophia will be present. Clear time limitations established in advance. Specific topics rather than open-ended conversation. He seems satisfied with my approach. The Pentagon liaison called this morning. They want to accelerate the timeline on the security protocol. Implementation. Committee briefing next Tuesday. The shift to professional matters provides welcome structure to the morning. We spend the next hour refining the presentation for the Joint Chiefs, focusing on the deployment schedule for our enhanced security measures across forward operating bases. As Trevor leaves, He pauses at the door. Sullivan, whatever you decide. With your parents, remember you've already won the war. This is just diplomatic negotiations after the victory. His perspective, framing my established success as the definitive outcome rather than the current reconciliation attempt, settles something inside me. I've built my life, my career, my relationships without their support. Any connection we establish now exists on the foundation of that completed achievement, not as a prerequisite for it. At noon, my phone rings with a call from Dr. Levine, my therapist. Our regular session isn't scheduled until next week, but I've sent her a brief update about the unexpected developments with my father. I had a cancellation and thought you might appreciate discussing recent events, she explains after I answer. Family reconciliation attempts can trigger complex emotional responses, especially in situations involving previous rejection. I've been surprisingly steady, I tell her, leaning back in my chair, more analytical than emotional about the whole interaction. That's your protective mechanism, she observes gently. The analytical framework creates safe distance from potentially painful emotions. It's served you well, but be mindful of when it might limit authentic connection. Her insight lands precisely. The same professional detachment that helped me survive Afghanistan and build BastionShield also creates a buffer in personal relationships. A necessary shield in combat zones that can become an obstacle in healing ones. He's showing genuine signs of change, I admit. Using accountability, language, acknowledging specific failures rather than general apologies, accepting the financial oversight without resistance. Those are promising indicators, Dr. Levine agrees. The structured financial arrangement provides external reinforcement for new behavioral patterns. The question becomes whether those changes persist when the external structure eventually relaxes. Exactly my concern, I reply, grateful for her understanding of the complexity. I'm considering a video call with my mother today, with Sophia present. A significant step, she notes. What are your expectations for that conversation? The question makes me pause. What am I hoping to achieve? Assessment, I finally answer. Understanding whether she's equally engaged in the accountability process or still functioning primarily as my father's echo, and if it's the latter, then I maintain stronger boundaries with her than with him. Different levels of engagement based on different levels of recognition. Dr. Levine makes a sound of approval. That's a nuanced approach, Jamie. Not all or nothing thinking, but calibrated responses based on individual behavior, rather than treating them as a monolithic unit. After we end the call, I text my father. Available for video call with Mom at 5 p.m., 30 minutes maximum. Sophia will be present. His response comes quickly. Thank you, Jamie. We'll be ready. Your mother is very grateful for this opportunity. I forward the confirmation to Sophia, who replies with a supportive message and a promise to arrive at my office by 4:45. Then, I immerse myself in work again, finding the familiar challenges of cybersecurity a welcome respite from family complexity. The far afternoon passes quickly, filled with team meetings and protocol refinements. At 4:30, I close my office door and take a moment to center myself before the upcoming call. On my desk sits the photograph my father brought last night, myself in Naksh. Dress blues at my commission ceremony, standing tall with unmistakable pride. A moment they missed, but grace ensured was documented. Sophia arrives precisely on time, dressed in her courtroom suit, armor for difficult encounters, just as my military posture serves me. She kisses me briefly before settling into the chair, positioned to be visible on the video call while allowing her to observe without being the focus. Boundaries established? She asks as I set up the laptop. 30-minute maximum. Focus on present circumstances rather than past grievances. No financial discussions beyond confirming the agreement implementation is proceeding as scheduled. She nods approval. And your personal boundaries? What do you need from me during this? Presence, I reply simply. Your perspective afterward. Intervention only if things move into problematic territory. At precisely 5 p.m., I initiate the video call. The screen flickers briefly before revealing my parents sitting side by side in what appears to be my father's hotel room. My mother looks older than I remember, her once perfect blonde hair now streaked with gray, lines around her eyes that weren't there 5 years ago. Her expression holds a nervousness I rarely saw in childhood. "Jamie," she says, her voice catching slightly. It's so good to see you." "Hello, Mom," I reply, maintaining the professional composure that has carried me through countless difficult briefings. This is Sophia Mendez, my partner. Sophia offers a polite greeting as my mother studies her through the screen with obvious curiosity. "Your father told me about dinner last night," my mother continues. "About how accomplished you've become." The hesitation in her voice suggests struggling to find appropriate terminology, the same difficulty in seeing me clearly that characterized our relationship throughout my childhood. "BastionShield has been successful," I deflect, attributing achievement to the company rather than claiming personal recognition. "We specialize in security protocols for high-risk environments." "Jamie," my father interrupts gently, "your mother and I have been discussing our patterns of communication with the financial counselor. One issue we've identified is deflecting recognition of your accomplishments. When you attribute your success to external factors rather than acknowledging your personal achievement, you're continuing a pattern we established." The insight, clearly derived from their counseling sessions, catches me off guard. He's right. Of course, my habitual deflection of praise mirrors their lifelong minimization of my achievements. That's an accurate observation, I acknowledge, glancing briefly at Sophia, who offers an encouraging nod. "We failed to celebrate your accomplishments," my mother says, her voice steadier now. "Even before the disagreement about your enlistment. The financial counselor helped us see how differently we responded to you versus Grace. How we took your success for granted while celebrating her smallest efforts. The explicit acknowledgement of their differential treatment, something they'd always denied when confronted, creates a momentary tightness in my throat. Your father told me about your injury," she continues, "about Afghanistan, about the Bronze Star. I don't have the right to say this, but I'm so proud of you, Jamie. Not because of the recognition, but because of the courage it represents. We both are," my father adds, "though we forfeited the privilege of expressing that pride by our actions." Their coordinated acknowledgement suggests significant counseling, the language too precise, too directly addressing past failures to be coincidental. Yet the sincerity in their expressions appears genuine, despite the clearly rehearsed nature of their messages. "The financial restructuring is proceeding as planned," I respond, defaulting to the concrete rather than engaging directly with the emotional content of their statements. "The counselor reports you're both participating actively in the process." "It's been illuminating," my mother admits. "Difficult but necessary, like looking in a mirror we've been avoiding for years." For the next 20 minutes, our conversation navigates carefully between personal acknowledgments and practical matters. They share updates on their progress with the financial restructuring, my mother's unexpected aptitude for budgeting, my father's challenges with transparency requirements. I provide minimal details about BastionShield's growth and my upcoming Pentagon presentation. Throughout, Sophia observes silently, her presence both supportive and evaluative. I find myself occasionally catching her eye, drawing strength from her steady gaze when the conversation ventures into emotionally complex territory. As our agreed 30 minutes approach conclusion, my mother leans forward slightly. "Jamie, I know we've forfeited the right to ask anything of you beyond what you've already generously provided. But I hope, that is, we both hope this conversation might be the beginning of rebuilding some kind of relationship on whatever terms you're comfortable with." The carefully phrased request, acknowledging my authority to set boundaries rather than presuming renewed connection, reflects another counseling insight. Yet beneath the coached language, I detect genuine hope in her expression. I'm open to continued communication, I reply carefully, with the understanding that we're building something new rather than restoring what existed before. My boundaries remain non-negotiable, and my relationship with Grace stands independent of any connection with you. Relief softens my mother's features. Of course, we understand completely. After ending the call, Sophia and I sit in silence for several moments. The spring afternoon sunlight casts long shadows across my office, highlighting the photographs on my desk, military service images alongside recent pictures with Sophia and the BastionShield team. Impressions? I finally ask, turning to her. They've clearly had intensive counseling, she observes. The language is textbook accountability speak. But beneath that, she pauses, considering her assessment carefully. I saw genuine regret, especially from your mother. The counseling has given them a framework to express what they might not have had words for otherwise. Her analysis aligns with my own observations. Sustainable change or crisis-motivated compliance. Too early to determine definitively, she responds, echoing my earlier conversation with Trevor. But they're putting in the work. That suggests at least the potential for lasting change. The next morning brings an email from the financial counselor confirming the implementation of all agreed measures, the mortgage restructuring, Grace's educational fund, the scheduled oversight meetings. Formal mechanisms created to address practical matters while the emotional landscape remains under cautious reconstruction. Grace arrives that weekend as planned, her hug at the airport carrying the slightly awkward enthusiasm of siblings still learning to connect as adults. As we retrieve her luggage, she studies me with obvious curiosity. You seem different, she observes as we walk to my car. More, I don't know, present? Since talking with Mom and Dad again. Not because of them, I clarify, loading her suitcase into the trunk. Because of my own decisions about how to engage without losing myself in the process. She nods, understanding immediately. Boundaries look good on you, Jamie. Over the weekend, Grace and I explore San Francisco together, the tourist attractions she's never seen, the hidden local spots I've discovered since making the city my home. We carefully navigate conversations about our parents, establishing our own relationship parameters separate from the complex reconciliation process underway. Sunday evening finds us on my balcony, watching the sunset paint the city in golden light. Grace sips her wine thoughtfully before asking, "Do you think they can really change, after all this time?" The question deserves careful consideration. I think the financial structure creates accountability they've never had before, I finally answer. And the counseling provides tools they've lacked. Whether those external supports create internal transformation that persists long-term. I shrug slightly. That remains to be seen. And if they can't maintain it? If they slip back into old patterns once the crisis passes? Then I maintain the boundaries I've established, I reply with certainty that surprises even me. My life no longer depends on their recognition or approval. Any relationship we build exists because it adds value to my well-being, not because I need it to validate my worth. Grace studies me with obvious admiration. When did you get so wise, big sister? Afghanistan has a way of clarifying priorities, I tell her honestly. Nothing sharpens perspective quite like nearly dying for choices your family couldn't respect. 6 months later, I stand at the podium in BastionShield's conference room, addressing our expanded team as we celebrate securing the extended Pentagon contract. Trevor stands nearby, his prosthetic arm visible beneath his rolled-up shirt sleeve, a matching set to my own artificial limb, neither of us hiding the physical reminders of our service. Security isn't just about preventing breaches, I tell the assembled group, many of them veterans like us. It's about creating systems resilient enough to withstand unexpected challenges, about establishing boundaries that protect without isolating, about recognizing vulnerabilities as opportunities for strengthening rather than weaknesses to conceal. My gaze finds Sophia in the back row, her proud smile warming me from across the room. Beside her sit my parents and Grace, invited to this professional milestone as part of our carefully constructed new relationship. The monthly video calls have continued, supplemented by the financial counselor's regular reports confirming their continued compliance with all agreement terms, small steps toward rebuilding trust, each one measured and evaluated before proceeding to the next. My father's expression as he watches me speak carries something I've rarely seen directed toward me: genuine respect, untainted by expectations of what I should have been. My mother's eyes shine with tears she tries to discreetly wipe away, her pride no longer hidden behind comparison to Grace's achievements. They aren't perfect. Occasional comments still reveal ingrained patterns requiring correction. But they're trying, consistently and visibly, to see me as I am rather than as they once demanded I should be. After the presentation, as staff and family mingle during the reception, Trevor approaches my parents with the direct manner that characterizes all his interactions. "Your daughter saved my life in Kandahar," he tells them without preamble. Not just during the attack, but afterward at Walter Reed when continuing seemed impossible. The security protocols she designed have saved countless others since. You missed witnessing extraordinary service, but you're seeing the aftermath of it now. My father extends his hand, meeting Trevor's gaze directly. We failed her in ways I'm only beginning to understand. Thank you for being there when we weren't. Later, that evening, as Sophia and I walk along the waterfront near our apartment, she asks, "Are you happy with how things are developing with your family?" I consider the question carefully, watching boats move across the bay in the gathering twilight. I'm satisfied with the boundaries we've established, with my independence from their approval, with the careful reconstruction of connection on my terms rather than theirs. "That's not quite what I asked," she observes gently. "Happiness wasn't the goal," I explain after a moment's reflection. Security was. Emotional security, independent of their recognition. I've achieved that. The rest is ongoing assessment. Continued vigilance against old patterns while allowing for the possibility of new ones. Sophia links her arm through mine as we continue walking. Always the security expert. Evaluating potential vulnerabilities. Some habits serve me well, I remind her with a small smile. 3 years since my parents' desperate call about the mortgage foreclosure, I stand in my office reviewing the final report from the financial counselor. The structured oversight program has reached its scheduled conclusion. All benchmarks achieved, all obligations fulfilled. My parents' financial situation has stabilized through careful management, and my father's partial return to consulting work in a scaled-back capacity. The question now is whether the changes persist without the formal structure that supported them. Whether the recognition they've learned to express remains consistent without the oversight that initially required it. Time will tell. As with any security protocol, the true test comes not during implementation, but in the maintenance phase that follows, the daily vigilance after spotlights have dimmed and attention has moved elsewhere. What I know with certainty is this. Regardless of what happens next, I remain whole and secure in the life I've built. The failure they once dismissed has become the foundation supporting their recovery. The daughter they couldn't see clearly now stands visible not just to them, but more importantly to herself. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't proving others wrong about you. It's building a life so undeniably yours that their opinion, right or wrong, no longer determines your worth. What would you do if those who once dismissed you suddenly needed your help? Would you extend assistance with conditions, or would you walk away entirely? The boundaries you establish in such moments don't just protect you from further harm, they create the foundation for whatever relationship might follow. If you've ever been underestimated by those who should have believed in you most, Remember that your success isn't defined by their recognition. It's built through your perseverance, your resilience, and your unwavering belief in your own worth when no one else could see it. If you enjoyed this story of resilience and boundaries, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content about overcoming adversity and finding strength in unexpected places. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new upload, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences with family expectations and finding your own path. Remember, sometimes the people who were supposed to support you can't see your potential, but that doesn't mean it isn't there, waiting for you to believe in it first.